Good morning. Don't you feel like you're in the right place today? Yes. My name is Kathy Crain. I'm your worship associate this morning. I'm also on the board. I'm happy to greet you this morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Clemson. We are located on the land of the Eastern Cherokee and Southern Iroquois. It's wonderful to be with you today. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your life journey, you are welcome here. Whomever you love, wherever you were born, whatever language you speak, you are welcome here. We are so glad that you chose our fellowship as your place of worship this morning. We come together for worship in order to slow down and listen to the callings of our hearts, our spirits. We come together for worship so that we can be reminded of our highest aspirations and continue to transform ourselves into our best selves. If you're joining us for the first time this morning, welcome. If you are a visitor and would like to stand and tell us who you are, we encourage you to do that. Any visitors like to say hello?
Good morning. My name is Susan, and we come from Iva. We've taken the trek. We searched out your church, and we're excited to be here.
Very good. Susan from Iva, welcome. Are you debating? Welcome. Welcome, everybody. If you are interested in getting our weekly newsletter so you can get connected to our community, our weekly shares of joys and concerns, and our collective efforts to support local social justice work, please reach out to the office by email on our website. I'd like to point out that our settled minister, Reverend Holly Brown, is away today. Reverend Holly was up at the Mountain Retreat Center this past week to be together with other UU ministers. Can you imagine no better week for that to happen? And then for those of you who do read the emailed weekly connection, you may have seen Reverend Holly's splendid photograph from the mountain. It is such a miraculous place to be. So you have the order, order of service. On the back, you see the announcements. And I want to point out we have so many volunteers that make Sundays happen. You see a lot of the names up there at the top. Well, I already went to go pounce on Michael and said, Michael, why aren't you wearing that yellow vest? Because Michael is listed as the safety responder. So I can look through the window, and I don't know if Dave is listening. It doesn't look like he is. But Dave Sanders is acting as our safety responder today. So thank you for that bit. You will see an announcement that next Sunday after the service, we're going to tell you about what safety means here at UUFC. What do you think, Karen? Maybe about 10, 15 minutes? That we'll gather there in the foyer. We'll show you our AED machine, talk to you about who our CPR people are and CPR trained people are, and just show you other safety things that we are mighty proud that we have put in place. When you go into the social room, you will see the marvelously colored wall of leaves, autumn presentations with people's names on it. Thank you to Petra and Marty for keeping up with our stewardship campaign. The names on those leaves are the people who have turned in their stewardship packets. So we are in our stewardship drive right now. Please see Petra if you need some information on the stewardship and you would like to be a part if you have not already. I'm going to chat just a little bit more. The very first announcement that said this week, fourth Saturday meditation group, that actually this month is going to be the fifth Saturday. So the meditation, it will be on November 30th during the Thanksgiving week. But this coming Saturday will indeed be the Habitat for Humanity. And Barbara, all the way in the back, Barbara helped to usher this morning. Check with Barbara if you want to be a part of the Thanksgiving potluck here. It looks like it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful time. December 7th, Mary, you want to raise your hand? Mary is in charge of the White Elephant Gift Exchange, which looks like it's going to be a whole lot of fun. And then we'll have our congregational meeting, talk about a whole lot of fun, on December 8th. So we hope that everybody will be here for that. Other announcements follow on your order of service. So today, like I said, our settled minister, Reverend Holly, is away. Instead, we have Helen Wolfson and Eric Thomas here with us. They come from the Emu River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, which is near Durham, North Carolina. I really enjoyed reading about the two of you on the website. Their website, you could just Google Helen's name, and it will get you to their Constellation website. And it's a pretty fun story about how these two musicians got together. Eric is more rock and roll oriented. And when he first met Helen and they said, well, let's play some music together, he decided to play Georgia on My Mind. Helen went, as I inferred from the website. But she said, okay, well, let me play you something. And she played Bach's Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring. And they found a connection with that, for which we are very, very glad. They have developed a repertoire ranging from traditional fiddle tunes to blues to country and beyond. We are in for such a treat today. They issued their first joint CD in 2008. Their most recent CD was 2019? I think so. That's what I read on your website. And that 2019 CD is all original music. They put a collection of their CDs on the table in the social room, and they are asking just for donations, if you would care to make a donation. Interesting story about why they have so many, but they want everybody. If you like the hammer dulcimer and the guitar, please help yourself.
If you have a CD player.
Oh, that's why there's so many there. If you have a CD player, that's right. On that website, Constellation, you can see that there's information if you are interested in booking joint or solo repertoires through Constellation. So today they will be featuring the topic, Gather the Spirit, to consider what spirit might mean to a humanist. And when I read that, I thought that Martha Alexander and her husband Jim were the perfect hosts for these folks. And I bet you talked about humanism all night long. Welcome.
We'll open with these words from Albert Schweitzer, noted philosopher, physician, and musician. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude to those who have lighted the flame within us. So please rise in body and spirit and join in singing number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
Rejoice and come in.
Thank you, Cory. I'd like to ask Talia to come up and light the chalice for us, please. Good morning. The chalice lighting and words of affirmation are in your bulletin. Let's read them together, please. We gather together in a spirit of love with justice as our guide. This is our chosen covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth with freedom, and to care for one another.
Our story this morning continues the theme of a spark. Although this story comes from the Jewish tradition, and we'll be talking today more about humanism, it highlights the idea that there are philosophies and concepts that cross boundaries. So our story this morning is One Small Spark by Ruth Shapiro, illustrated by Victoria Tentler-Krylov. Imagine the world you want to live in. If that's not the world you see, will you create it? When something is broken or someone needs help, you have a choice, an opportunity to repair the world. In a moment, you decide who you are and who you want to be. A spark that lights your heart becomes an idea, and then action. Maybe you're small, but the problem feels big. It's okay to ask for help, because one person can't do everything, but everyone can do one thing, which may lead to another. Repairing the world takes understanding. It takes imagination. It takes practice. We're all on one team, each a string, like a rope made of strands, holding hands, woven, connected, stronger. Along the way, you'll discover that many things are perfect just the way they are. You'll also discover that sometimes it's hard to know what to do. But even the tiniest spark will flicker and dance until it's impossible to ignore. Think of each act of kindness as a little gift, given quietly. Not for a reward or even a thanks, but because when life isn't fair and you have more than you need, you have the power to create balance, and balance feels better. You know, your action today changes everything tomorrow. And then the world will be different. Imagine everyone gathering sparks, opening their hearts, and repairing our world together. Tikkun Olam.
Thank you, Karen. That story reminds me that I need to add a reminder. Also in the social room is the tree that's being decorated with the mittens and the scarves and the hats. It's a collection that we do every year that will go to Ripple of One. How long, Karen? When will you collect those?
December 8th is the last day.
December 8th, the day of our congregational meeting, is the last day that we will collect those. Thank you very much. So at this time, we will take the offering, and we'll just remind you that 25% of undesignated offering will go to Clemson Community Care, which is UUFC's benevolence of the month of November. Thank you. Well, now, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for your generosity. At this time, we share joys and concerns that are shared by you that you wish to have announced to everybody. And Helen, thank you for putting a stone from the basket into the bowl with each that we share. The first is from Cindy Lee. She shares the celebration of the life of her Aunt Betty Morgan, who died at age 96, leaving her family with so many good memories. I'm glad you got to be with the family. Petra Bear shares a sorrow that the husband of Kathy Moltz, John, died on Thursday. Kathy has been helping Steve Afragola since Mel passed in mid-August. Thank you. And we will add one more stone for joys or celebrations unannounced. Thank you. And at this time, let's sing our children to the classes.
For our reading today, we're going to share with you a number of short quotes about spirit that illustrate just some of the very different ways that people use this word. For some people, spirit refers to the essential core of a human being. Viktor Frankl famously wrote, "This is the core of the human spirit. If we can find something to live for, if we can find some meaning to put at the center of our lives, even the worst kind of suffering becomes bearable." And Justine Willis Toms exhorts us to notice when your heart leaps up in joyous exuberance. In these moments, the voice of your spirit is speaking directly to you.
Some people consider that human spirits have a common essence, but others insist that each human spirit is unique. Wade Davis tells us, "The world in which you were born is just one model of reality. Other cultures are not failed attempts at being you. They are unique manifestations of the human spirit."
So what is this human spirit? For many, the human spirit is an explicitly positive thing, but others acknowledge the human spirit is not all sweetness and light. I find this quote from Juliana Boggett particularly poignant, especially today. "I look at the past and fear we haven't learned from it. I believe that humanity is capable of evil as well as great acts of courage and goodness. I have hope. Deep down, I believe in the human spirit, although sometimes that belief is shaken."
To some, like Nikola Tesla, spirit is simply the essence of being human. Owing to the similarity of our construction and the sameness of our environment, we respond in like manner to similar stimuli, and from the concordance of our reactions, understanding is born. In the course of ages, mechanisms of infinite complexity are developed, but what we call soul or spirit is nothing more than the sum of the functionings of the body. When this functioning ceases, the soul or the spirit ceases likewise.
So although I am mostly in Tesla's camp, I love, and I'll end these readings with a poetic quote from Jimmy Carter. "Carter, being a Christian, may well intend spirit here to mean some kind of Holy Spirit, but the sentiment works as well for my humanist self." Carter says, "Spirit is like the wind, in that we can't see it, but we can see its effects, which are profound." So now please remain seated and join me in singing hymn number 123 in the gray hymnal, "Spirit of Life." In our household, spirit is a dirty word. At least for my husband Eric, it is. It means something different to every person, he rants. Why use the word at all? Why not just say what you mean in plain English and be done with it? I'm a tad more sanguine. I have my own personal sense of spirit, and I like to ask people what they mean when they use the word spirit or spirituality. It usually leads to an interesting conversation, at least in an eclectic place like a UU fellowship. But when our fellowship, the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Durham, which we call ERUF for short, developed a mission statement that speaks of a religious community of spirit, service, justice, and love, I felt compelled to consider some of the ways that people use this elusive word, and in particular, to find how I might interpret it and be comfortable with the mission statement. Keep in mind, please, that this is the exploration of a humanist whose motivation was to find some way first to understand spirit and then spirit of life in a way that was comfortable to her. Some of you may have very different perspectives on the meaning of this word. So let me digress for just a moment and say that I'm generally not in favor of crafting bespoke definitions of words. Suppose that I come up with a meaning for spirit that I'm really comfortable with, but that is not what most people think of when they hear the word. If I use that word without an explanation, I'm at best not communicating, and at worst, misleading or lying, depending on my intent. In this case, I had to create a whole Sunday service to explain my custom definition to you. But in this case, with the word spirit being used in my fellowship's mission statement, I felt that I had no choice. How is your spirit today is the question one of my fellow E-Ruffians always asks when she's leading a meeting, which, like most small UU meetings I have ever been to, starts with a check-in. Initially, this question flummoxed me. What did she mean by spirit, this thing that I'm not even sure I have? Over time, I've come to understand that she's asking for a reading of some kind of internal emotional barometer. Some people can readily respond with a single word, usually followed by some elaboration about the events leading to this particular state of spirit. It's rarely easy for me to pick one word. I always feel more like a patchwork of spirit. Devastated, scared, determined, with a large helping of appreciation for the UU community might be my reply today. This use of the word spirit is a snapshot. It's subject to change as the world turns. But before I go on, let's pause to center ourselves and check in with our individual spirits. I invite you to find as comfortable a position as you can, to close your eyes, and to focus on your breath. Simply watch your breath as it enters and leaves your lungs. There's no right or wrong way. As long as you continue to breathe, you're good. Now as you breathe in, notice your lungs expanding, your rib cage moving up and out. And as you breathe out, feel them contracting. If thoughts of your life outside this space intrude, gently and respectfully set them aside. They'll be there for you and you for them when our time together ends. As you set them aside, return your focus to your breath. Notice the moment between inhalation and exhalation. The moment between exhalation and inhalation. These are the times when your body is most still. Embrace this stillness. Now continuing to breathe in and out, slowly, relaxed. Ask yourself, how is my spirit today? Whatever comes to the fore, sit with it for a moment. Listen to what it has to say. Some of you may find something pleasant, appreciation for something in your life, joy, even exuberance. Some of you may find something less pleasant: disappointment, despair, anger. Whatever you find, continue to breathe gently in and out, and give your spirit, whatever its state, the room to breathe with you. Acknowledge what you're experiencing without judgment. Sit with the reality of the moment. On your next inhalation, breathe in deeply, and as you exhale, release any tension in your spirit and body. Again, breathe in and release. And now invite your spirit to shift to a state of serenity, which is a mixture of feeling safe and calm. Let the serenity spread throughout your body. Let it fill your heart as you inhale and exhale a few more times at your own perfect pace. On your next inhalation, invite the serenity to stay with you. Remember that your spirit manifests in myriad ways, and the state of your spirit depends to some degree on which tendencies you choose to nourish. Eric will now play one of my favorite of his pieces to gently escort you back from your meditation and prepare you to listen to the rest of what I have to say. One of the joys of being married to Eric is I can hear that whenever I want. Actually play it on the dulcimer too. It's pretty great there. So we've been experiencing some of the different manifestations of spirit, the snapshot of emotional barometer that I spoke of earlier. Another use of spirit manifests in our everyday language when we say things like, she's a free spirit, or he has a contemplative spirit. This usage reflects less of an instantaneous snapshot and more an integration of snapshots over longer periods of time. It's less likely to change in the short run, but it certainly can change over a long term. So these related uses of the word spirit are pretty easy for most people to grasp. They're simple, and they're not controversial or mystical. But there are other less specific uses of the word as well. As Eric points out, the word means different things to different people, and even, I would suggest, different things to the same person depending on the context or even the day of the week. So let's explore these ideas a little further. Before continuing, I just want to reiterate, these are my thoughts coming from my humanist perspective, and you will, much to Eric's chagrin, have your own ideas. So spirit comes from a Latin word, which means breath. Picture all of us sitting here together on this Sunday morning, breathing together. What happens when we breathe together? Well, one image that I love, although it has become somewhat more problematic since the pandemic, is that we're exchanging molecules. The air that I breathe in right now, I'll breathe out shortly, and somebody else will breathe in some of those molecules before we leave here. But imagine what it would look like if we could see all those molecules of oxygen and nitrogen and carbon dioxide just zipping around the room. When we breathe together, we quite literally are sharing ourselves with each other. In this fundamental way, we form a community of spirit, a community that shares breath. What else happens when we breathe together? There's something almost magical that happens sometimes. Let me start with a small personal example. When I play music with Eric, the thing that people most often comment on is not the music. It's on the way that Eric and I interact when we're playing. I can't do that alone, and neither can Eric. But when the two of us are playing, it's more than Eric playing his guitar and me playing my dulcimer. The two of us together are undeniably more than each of us is alone. Something larger than either of us springs from our relationship and from our love of what we're doing. Since I'm speaking right now, and Eric is not, I'm going to take advantage of the situation and I'm going to declare that this thing is spirit, our spirit. The image that most often comes to my mind is that each of us carries a flame within us, that flame that Schweitzer speaks of, that flame they spoke of in the children's story. And when we play music together, those flames join together to create a larger one that's easier for the world to perceive than either of our flames alone. To me, creating this kind of spirit is a fundamental part of being human, though everyone sees it through an individual lens. For some folks, spirit is a mystical form of energy to which they attribute supernatural qualities. For Eric, it's something he wishes he could figure out how to measure. I referred to it earlier as almost magical, but in fact, I think that this ability to create something greater than our individual selves is arguably one of the greatest of human qualities. No magic required, just add people. So what happens when you add people? If just Eric and I playing music together can create something that is enough greater than either of us that it's what people almost always notice about us, just imagine what can happen when a larger group comes together. We see this often in everyday life. Put a smallish group of people together and give them a ball to kick or throw or hit, and you'll create team spirit. Put a somewhat larger group together, put them through rigorous physical training, teach them military tactics, and you create esprit de corps. On a larger scale, you create nationalism. French sociologist Émile Durkheim refers to this emergent spirit as collective effervescence. This is a term that I love. In her book, Strangers in Their Own Land, Arlie Russell Hochschild cites Durkheim's work and says, Collective effervescence is a state of emotional excitation felt by those who join with others they take to be fellow members of a moral or biological tribe. Clearly, this kind of spirit is neither inherently good nor inherently bad. It's a human characteristic. It just happens under certain circumstances. And people who understand how spirit works can be fabulous leaders, coaches, military officers, religious leaders, or politicians, for example. So while this use of the word spirit is related to the thing that happens when Eric and I play together, is it the spirit that we address in what I call the UU National Anthem, which we just sang, Spirit of Life? When I first encountered this hymn, I loved the melody and many of the words, but I was baffled by that opening. Spirit of life, come unto me. It felt to me like an invitation to a magical being, and my cosmology has no room for magic. How, I wondered, could I interpret that opening so I could sing it joyfully and sincerely? At this point in my musings, I decided to stop focusing on the words and to think about what I would want to invite to come unto me. And I didn't have to look far, because whenever I sing that song, I'm usually surrounded by other Unitarian Universalists. When dozens or hundreds or even thousands, think General Assembly, of UUs come together in community, we too create spirit. This spirit that we create from our relationships and from our shared love of Unitarian Universalism, maybe I could call that spirit of life. But there was an obstacle. I had this preconceived notion that spirit of life would have to be good in the same sense that a traditional God is benevolent. Clearly, the spirit that's created by bringing lots of people into community is not always as joyful as the spirit that's created when two people who love each other play music together. With each person you add, the number of possible interactions goes up rapidly and the potential for conflict increases. Any community of any size will experience conflict and tension. Think of it this way: as we have become acutely aware since March of 2020, if we sit in the same room breathing together and just one person has an airborne illness, our breathing together is going to have a downside. But conflict and tension and airborne illnesses are as much a part of community as goodwill and cooperation. If we can get over our fear of conflict and tension, they can be good teachers. We don't have to. In fact, I'm sure you know that we won't, like every member of our community. But when we come together in an intentional covenantal community like a UU fellowship, we move beyond individual differences. In the UU community, we agree to affirm and promote the 7 principles, which were not forged without significant conflict. We still argue about things like how we will worship, will we pray, will we meditate, will we make time for spoken joys and concerns, and what kind of cosmological language can we possibly use that will include non-theists and theists and everybody in between. It's a well-known fact that UUs will argue about almost anything, and many enjoy a good argument. Much UU humor is rooted in this truth. So a UU died and was surprised to discover that there really was an afterlife. The angel in charge of these things announced, because you were an unbeliever, and because you were a doubter and a skeptic, you will be sent to hell for all eternity, which in your case consists of a place where no one will disagree with you ever again. But when we're done arguing, or if that doesn't happen, in between rounds of arguing, we declare to the world that this thing that we create together, this collective spirit that springs from our commitment to the 7 principles, in spite of the differences we may harbor about how to best weave these principles into the fabric of human society, this collective spirit is more important than our disagreements and our differences. Indeed, if there were no disagreements or differences, if we were all alike and wanted to live exactly the same way, our community would surely stagnate. For those same interactions that cause tension and conflict provide us with opportunities to grow. I used to wonder if I'd be happier in the Ethical Humanist Society than at a UU fellowship. Everyone at Ethical Humanism is, not surprisingly, a humanist. I wouldn't have to sing hymns that make me squirm. I wouldn't have to listen to people pray or hear them speak of mystical things that simply don't resonate with me. And you can bet that I wouldn't have spent hours of my precious time thinking and talking and writing about spirit. But in choosing a homogeneous community, I would miss a lot. For starters, I would have missed the opportunity to spend hours of my precious time thinking, talking, and writing about spirit, which has been a lot of fun for me and even for Eric. I would miss the opportunity to hear what it's like to live with a different kind of brain chemistry. I would miss the opportunity to expand my attitude towards people who believe so differently from me, to expand it from tolerance to acceptance and to love. And I would miss the opportunity to challenge myself to participate in things that make me uncomfortable, but that bring comfort to others. I would live in a community that was more like me, but less like the real world. This gathering that we do when we breathe together, this pooling of resources, this exchange of ideas, this acceptance of differences, this combining of internal flames, this models the peaceful coexistence that the world so desperately needs. It is the spirit of life, not an immutable, permanent, necessarily good force that we call in from outside ourselves, but something that we create from within. We are responsible for nurturing it and for using it for the common good. There is no doubt that the spirit of life is powerful. Throughout history, and the present moment is no exception, my friends. Throughout history, UUs have joined their flames together to bend the moral arc of the universe toward justice. It just doesn't happen spontaneously. So let's continue to come together, to breathe together, to create a community of spirit, service, justice, and love that can transform our lives, the lives of the guests who walk into our communities, and the lives of the people in the communities beyond these walls. Now please rise in body or spirit and join in singing hymn 347, Gather the Spirit. And I guess the words will be up there, but it's in the gray hymnal.
With wisdom, mystery of this
So before I do the closing words, I just want to do a logistics. After the closing words, Eric will head out to greet you all. I will stay up here to talk to anyone who wants to know about this strange contraption, which you may not have seen before. If you'd like to play it, they'll turn the sound system off, so nobody else will hear it. It's in tune, so it will sound good. So don't be shy. Really, this thing transformed my life. You never know what's lurking around the corner. It might transform your life too. So for our closing words, let us gather this collective effervescence, this human spirit that has emerged during our time together in this time and place. It is born of our shared values and shared principles and shared determination to build beloved community. Let us take our collective energy out into the world and use it to bend the arc of the universe toward justice. May we be the ones to make it so. Go in peace.